Health problems in middle childhood. Childhood overweight and obesity are among the most concerning health problems in childhood, not only because of their growing prevalence, but because of their short and long-term health implications. Definitions of overweight and obesity are based on body mass index, BMI, which is a ratio of weight to height. According to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control, a child who is overweight has a BMI above the 85th percentile, while a child who is obese has a BMI above the 95th percentile, based on norms for the child's age. A large study by Ogden and colleagues found that approximately one-third of 6 to 11-year-olds were overweight, and over 15% of this age group were obese. How do children become overweight? Although the answer may seem simple, excessive caloric intake and/or lack of sufficient physical activity, in fact, the issue is quite complex. Obesity is a health issue with multiple factors contributing to its development. Some of the contributors identified by research include over 200 genes that help to regulate appetite, activity level, metabolism, etc. Genes can help to determine how easy or difficult it is for someone to lose, gain, or maintain weight. However, genes are only part of the picture. Some family practices, such as allowing young children to watch television, can contribute to increased risk. Furthermore, once children enter middle childhood, they become more vocal about their food preferences, with preference for high sugar and high fat foods being quite common, with advertising for unhealthy foods contributing to this preference. Parents may allow these foods in excess, which can contribute to weight gain. However, the issue goes beyond the child and the family and is even influenced by the community and by societal practices. For example, many people living in lower socioeconomic neighborhoods do not have easy access to nutritious foods. Grocery stores may be prohibitively far, leading people to rely more on convenience stores and fast food for their food supply. Similarly, children in poorer neighborhoods may not have access to regular physical activity. The cuts to recess and physical education in schools are particularly concerning in light of the implications for childhood obesity. Unfortunately, in general, time spent out of doors engaging in physical activity does appear to be waning, especially given children's engagement in video games, academic activities, and TV watching. To address childhood obesity, all of these factors must be addressed. Asthma is a chronic inflammatory disorder of the airways that impedes breathing. Rates of asthma are highest among school-aged children, and rates have seen a huge increase since 1980, with almost 15% of children under the age of 18 having asthma, approximately 10% for children ages 5 to 9. Like obesity, asthma is caused by the interplay of numerous factors. Genes do play a role, as do environmental factors such as the presence of carpeting and pets in the home, as well as pollution. One interesting hypothesis is that children have been shielded too much from viruses and bacteria, to the point where their immune systems haven't built up tolerance and thus are much more susceptible later in life to asthma and various immune system diseases. Although the research on this hypothesis is correlational, it is an intriguing proposition. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is a psychiatric condition characterized by numerous symptoms of inattentiveness and/or hyperactivity or impulsivity occurring before the age of 12. The symptoms occur across settings, school, home, etc., and interfere with functioning. Despite being a relatively common diagnosis, ADHD is somewhat controversial, not least because the prevalence rate has been steeply increasing since 1980, with 7% of 4 to 9-year-olds, 13% of 10 to 13-year-olds, and 15% of 14 to 17-year-olds having the diagnosis. ADHD can only be diagnosed through observation and testing, as there is no biomarker for ADHD. Given the at-times subjectivity of the diagnostic process, some critics attribute this increase to misdiagnosis or pathologizing normal behavior, while others point to the potential for drug abuse, given the typical treatment for ADHD, amphetamines. Medication is the second major source of controversy, as there are numerous complicated factors involved with psychostimulant medication in childhood and adolescence. Medication does benefit a large percentage of children with ADHD. At the same time, many developmentalists recommend behavioral interventions, either prior to starting medication or concurrent with medication management. Specific learning disorders disrupt a child's ability to learn in the absence of a physical or intellectual disability. The result is lower than expected achievement. The most common of these is dyslexia, which is a specific disorder of reading, though dyslexia takes many forms. Dyscalculia involves learning disability in math and is generally preceded by the lack of basic number sense. Specific learning disorders are often remediable, and early diagnosis and individualized intervention are key. The hallmark of autism spectrum disorder is severely impaired communication and social relationships, with restricted, repetitive behavior patterns, interests, or activities also being a key sign. The symptoms emerge in early childhood, with some signs in infancy, for example, a lack of a social smile. The term spectrum in this disorder refers to the wide diversity in presentations for this disorder, with some people being severely impaired and others considered high functioning. Perhaps because of this diversity, identifying effective treatments has been difficult. Some success has been found with biological treatments, for example, nutrition changes and/or medication, and with behavioral methods, particularly child and parent education. However, the results of research on these treatments is often mixed, leaving many parents confused about the best course of action for their child's situation. Fortunately, with the rise in rates of diagnosis, as many as 1 in 88 children are diagnosed, comes an increased interest in research and treatment. An unfortunate side effect of increased awareness, however, has been the belief that vaccines cause autism, which has been discounted by numerous research studies. This fear has led to falling rates of immunization and subsequent outbreaks of disease among children. Reflection. How do health problems such as obesity and asthma affect children's education? How does a psychiatric condition such as ADHD, specific learning disorders, or autism spectrum disorder affect the typical developmental pathway? Do you take this into account in your work with a student with one or more of these conditions? How?